So what does the U.S. president's speech mean for the rest of the world? How different is Barack Obama's view of the world? And is there an Obama doctrine? For all the answers to that, let's turn to Nathan King. Hello, Nathan.
Hi, Asa. Is there indeed? Yeah, for much of his presidency, Barack Obama's foreign policy has been more easily defined by what he stood against rather than for. Namely, he's had to unwind the wars of the George W. Bush era. But now, with those wars ending, there is a window of opportunity for this US president to define what he stands for on the world stage and to act on it.
In the battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed.
Then US President George W. Bush back in 2003, his infamous mission accomplished moment when he declared all major combat operations in Iraq had ended, a symbol of US military might and hubris before the reckoning that would claim thousands of US lives, cost over $1 trillion, and perhaps most importantly, damage America's standing in the world. Much of the Obama presidency has been spent ending the unpopular wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So is there an Obama doctrine when it comes to foreign policy?
I think that is the doctrine, is that he wants to pull America back, end wars, doesn't believe that there's a military solution to every problem, doesn't believe it's America's responsibility to try to solve every problem. And we have issues to solve here at home, and meanwhile the rest of the world needs to take more responsibility.
Critics also point to an inconsistency when events have confronted Obama, an interventionist over Libya, but an internationalist over Syria. And then drawing a red line on chemical weapons and threatening missile strikes, only to back diplomacy days later. Announcing a pivot to Asia, but then focusing for a year on a fruitless bid for peace between the Palestinians and Israel. In Ukraine, a swift imposition of sanctions against Russia, which did not deter Moscow from absorbing Crimea. And in Asia, declaring the US military alliance with Japan extends to the Diaoyu Islands, but then calling for all maritime disputes to be settled peacefully. The image of a president adrift, reacting to events, not shaping them. This speech then a chance, perhaps his last, with only 2.5 years left in his presidency, to define US foreign policy. Rejecting a rush to military force, yes, but the US president also emphasized that the US will use military force to protect core interests and allies, unilaterally if need be, and the force must be proportional and just, and that international opinion matters. Terrorism, he said, remains the most direct threat to the US, but when US interests are not at stake, a threshold for force must be higher. There was a focus on collective action, diplomacy and development, with allies contributing more. And the US, he said, cannot be exempt from rules that apply to everyone else. If the US follows international law and helps shape it, Obama argues, then the US will lead the world when it comes to the challenges of the 21st century, whether it's climate change or cybersecurity. But the US president admitted the US still flouts those laws.
One example of flouting those laws, the prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Obama again vowed to work to close it, but he's promised that many times before. He says that the US is also changing the way it gathers intelligence, but did not mention Edward Snowden. And remember, we should also look at this foreign policy address through the prism of a war-weary country. The biggest applause line for the US president came when he told the new military cadets that they would be the first graduates in a decade not to be deployed to Iraq or Afghanistan.
All right, thank you so much, Nathan King.